Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you've ever wondered how the world went from relative peace to a global war that killed millions, you're in the right place. Before we begin, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss more videos breaking down history and global events in a simple way. How did the world go from relative peace to a global war that killed millions? How could a single event trigger something so massive? In the early 1900s, Europe looked powerful, confident, and stable on the surface. Massive empires controlled vast territories, and economies were growing stronger. Countries were becoming more advanced and influential than ever before. But beneath that calm surface, tensions were quietly building. Nations were competing for power and influence. They were building larger armies and forming secret alliances. Many leaders believed a major conflict was inevitable. Europe was slowly moving toward a breaking point. Then, in 1914, one assassination changed everything. What started as a regional crisis quickly spiraled out of control. Within weeks, it turned into a full-scale war. Some of the most powerful countries in the world were suddenly involved. The conflict spread across continents. Millions of soldiers were drawn into brutal and unfamiliar fighting. This war introduced a new kind of warfare the world had never seen before. It was not just a war of armies, but a war that changed entire societies. It reshaped politics and destroyed long-standing empires. The global balance of power was permanently altered. But the real question is, how did it escalate so quickly? Why did so many countries get involved? And could it have been prevented? To answer that, we need to look beyond the single event that triggered it. World War I was fought between 1914 and 1918. It became one of the first truly global conflicts in history. It involved major powers from Europe and eventually countries from around the world. The scale of destruction was unlike anything seen before. On one side were the Allied powers, including Britain, France, and Russia. Later, the United States also joined them. On the other side were the Central Powers. These were led by Germany. But this war did not begin overnight. It was the result of years of growing tension across Europe. These tensions were driven by militarism, alliances, imperial competition, and rising nationalism. Each factor pushed countries closer to conflict. In this video, we will break down how Europe reached this breaking point. We will also explore what exactly happened in 1914. We'll look at how the war spread so quickly across nations. You'll also see what fighting looked like on the ground. Finally, we will examine how the war came to an end and what its consequences meant for the future of the world. By the end, you will not only understand what happened during the war, you will also understand why it happened, and more importantly, how its consequences shaped the modern world we live in today. Before 1914, Europe was seen as powerful and advanced, but beneath that image, tension was steadily growing. One major factor was militarism. Countries were building massive armies and investing heavily in weapons. Military strength became a symbol of national power. Governments believed preparing for war was necessary. Germany and Britain, for example, were locked in a naval arms race. Each tried to build a stronger navy than the other. This competition increased fear and suspicion between nations. It pushed countries closer to conflict. Another key factor was the alliance system. European nations formed agreements to support each other during war. On one side was the Triple Alliance, including Germany, Austria. On the other side was the Triple Entente, made up of Britain, France, and Russia. These alliances were meant to provide security, but they also meant a small conflict could quickly grow larger. If one country went to war, its allies would be pulled in. This created a dangerous chain reaction. Nationalism also played a major role. People felt strong pride in their nations and identities. In regions like the Balkans, nationalism created instability. Different ethnic groups wanted independence or more power. This caused tension inside empires like Austria. Serbia, for example, supported Slavic nationalism. This threatened Austria-Hungary's control over its territories. It increased the risk of conflict. Imperialism added another layer of rivalry. European powers competed for colonies and influence around the world. This competition extended to Africa and Asia. It created conflicts beyond Europe itself. All these factors combined to create a tense situation. Europe was like a loaded gun, ready to fire. Tensions were high, alliances were set, and armies were prepared. It was not a question of if war would happen, but when. That moment came in June 1914 in the city of Sarajevo. Archduke Franz Ferdinand was visiting the region with his wife. During the visit, he was assassinated by Gavrilo Princip. He was linked to a group supporting Serbian interests. At first, this seemed like a local political event, but it quickly escalated into something much bigger. Austria-Hungary blamed Serbia for the attack. It issued an ultimatum with strict demands. Serbia accepted most of the demands, but not all. This gave Austria-Hungary a reason to declare war. The alliance system then came into effect. Russia, which supported Serbia, began mobilizing its army. Germany, allied with Austria-Hungary, saw this as a threat. It declared war on Russia. Soon after, Germany declared war on France. France was Russia's key ally. Germany then invaded Belgium to quickly attack France. Belgium was a neutral country. This action brought Britain into the war. Britain had pledged to defend Belgium. Within weeks, a regional conflict became a major war. Multiple powerful nations were now involved. The speed of escalation shocked many people. Leaders had expected a short war, but they underestimated its scale and complexity. The assassination acted as a spark for deeper tensions. Once the chain reaction began, it could not be stopped. Alliances and military plans drove the war forward. As the war began, it quickly expanded beyond Europe. It became a global conflict. Germany's invasion of France led to fighting on the Western Front. Battles between Germany and Russia took place on the Eastern Front. But the war spread far beyond these regions. Countries brought soldiers from their colonies. Troops from India, Africa, Australia, and Canada joined the fight. The war became truly international. The Ottoman Empire joined the Central Powers. This opened new fronts in the Middle East. Fighting also spread to Africa and the seas. The war reached multiple continents. One defining feature of the war was trench warfare. Soldiers dug long trenches to protect themselves. These trenches stretched for hundreds of kilometers. They became the main battlefield on the Western Front. Conditions were extremely harsh. Soldiers faced mud, disease, and constant danger. Food was limited, and attacks were frequent. Life in the trenches was brutal. Despite many offensives, neither side gained a clear advantage. This led to a long stalemate. New technology made the war more deadly. Machine guns made direct attacks extremely dangerous. Poison gas caused fear and suffering. Tanks were later introduced to break trench lines. Submarines attacked ships at sea. Airplanes were used for scouting and combat. These innovations changed warfare completely. The conflict became more destructive than ever before. The war dragged on for years. Millions fought and died with little progress. By 1917, the war reached a turning point. Both sides were exhausted from years of fighting. Resources were running low. Morale was also declining. One major event was the entry of the United States. It had remained neutral at first. Germany's submarine warfare targeted ships with American passengers. This increased tensions. Another factor was the Zimmermann telegram. Germany tried to form an alliance with Mexico against the U.S. This pushed the United States closer to war. It joined the Allies in 1917. American troops and resources boosted the Allied side. This changed the balance of power. At the same time, Russia faced internal crisis. The Russian Revolution led to major political change. Russia withdrew from the war in 1980. This allowed Germany to focus on the Western Front. However, American support helped the Allies recover. They launched stronger offensives. German forces were gradually pushed back. The momentum of the war began to shift. Germany faced pressure at home and on the battlefield. Economic hardship increased unrest. The balance of power was clearly changing. The Central Powers were weakening. By late 1918, Germany's situation had become unsustainable. Continuous fighting and economic strain took their toll. Morale declined among both soldiers and civilians. The country struggled to continue the war. Allied forces launched major offensives. German forces were pushed back. At home, unrest grew as people faced shortages. Pressure increased on the government. Germany agreed to an armistice. It was signed on November 11, 1918. This ended the fighting, but the consequences of the war were massive. Millions had died or been injured. Entire regions were left devastated. Economies were damaged across Europe. Societies faced long-term challenges. Several empires collapsed. These included the German, Austrian. New countries were created. Borders were redrawn across Europe and the Middle East. One key outcome was the Treaty of Versailles. It imposed heavy penalties on Germany. Germany faced financial reparations and military limits. This created resentment and instability. Although the war ended, its effects continued. These tensions later contributed to future conflicts. World War I reshaped the global order. It changed politics, economies, and power structures. Understanding how the war ended explains its long-term impact. Its consequences shaped the modern world. World War I was not just a 4-year conflict. It was a turning point that changed the direction of the entire world. What began as a regional crisis quickly became a global war. Alliances, rising tensions, and pressure-driven decisions all played a role. The assassination in Sarajevo may have been the spark, but the real causes were built over years of competition, fear, and ambition. As the war unfolded, it introduced a new kind of warfare. It was more industrial, more destructive, and more devastating than anything before. Millions of lives were lost. Empires that had lasted for centuries collapsed. Entire societies were left trying to rebuild. The damage went far beyond the battlefield, but the most important part of this story is what came after. The way the war ended shaped the future. The Treaty of Versailles did not truly resolve tensions. Instead, it created new anger and instability. These unresolved issues eventually led to another global conflict. World War II became even larger and more destructive. This shows that wars are rarely isolated events. They are often part of a longer chain of causes and consequences. One decision can shape the future for decades. Small actions can lead to massive outcomes. Understanding World War I is not just about dates and battles. It is about how peace can quickly break down. When tensions are ignored and alliances become rigid, conflict becomes more likely. Leadership decisions play a critical role. Global stability depends on cooperation and balance. Careful decision-making is essential. History has already shown what happens when those things are lost, and those lessons still matter today.